All right, my clock says it is right at the top of the hour, and I'm a pretty prompt guy by nature, so we'll get this kicked off. Good afternoon, all, and thank you for joining the latest installment of our Harvesting Value webinar series. Our goal with this quarterly series is to provide you with information and resources that are relevant and helpful for making decisions across your operation. My name is Jacob DeBoer, and I'm part of the marketing team here at American Ag Credit, based out of what I call the Great Central Valley of California, here in Oakdale, California. If we have not yet had the pleasure of working together, American Ag Credit is part of the Farm Credit System, an agricultural lender that supports America's farmers and ranchers with consistent and reliable credit since 1916. Our sole mission is to improve the lives of our fellow Americans by sustainably supporting agriculture so Americans can have access to a nutritious, sufficient, safe, and secure food supply system. Before we dive into our presentation today, I'd like to remind everyone of a few housekeeping items. You are welcome to submit questions throughout the duration of our presentation today for our speaker at any time by using the Q&A feature, which is at the bottom of my Zoom taskbar and maybe at the top, however you're logging in. We'll do our best to address as many questions as possible at the end of our webinar and follow up with those directly via email with those who we've not had the chance to get to during the presentation today. Additionally, this presentation will be recorded and we'll share that link after the webinar so you can review it or forward it on to folks who may not have registered or weren't able to join today. Our presenter today is Heather Cartwright. Heather has more than 20 years of experience in fraud prevention, operational risk, and cybersecurity. At American Ag Credit, Heather leads efforts to assess and mitigate risks across fraud, privacy, and third-party domains, helping protect our organization and our customers from the ever-evolving threats in cyber crimes. Today, she'll educate you on top cyber threats facing ag today, how scams unfold, red flags in online equipment sales, and practical steps to secure your data and finances. Thanks for joining us today, Heather, and I'll go ahead and kick it over to you.
Great, thanks, Jacob. Today we are going to take a look at some cyber risks overall and how they relate to agriculture. We're going to talk about one of the fastest growing fraud attacks, currently business email compromise, talk about the prevalence of equipment fraud, and then finally how to get assistance. But first, let's do a quick pulse check before we begin. The next slide is going to have a poll that will come up on your screen. It'll stay open for about 30 seconds to a minute. And I currently have protections in place to secure my data or information online. It's just a quick true or false. If you'd please vote in that poll, we can see where everybody's at when it comes to cybersecurity. Give us kind of a jumping off point. As we're waiting for those poll questions or poll results to come in, we're going to talk a lot about why agriculture is vulnerable to these types of threats and how likely it is that you're going to see an attack like this. Talk about some security weaknesses that we've seen, but we just need to really focus on that as agriculture is starting to embrace all of the digital tools like robotics and GPS, aerial imaging, things to boost your production, that cybersecurity is increasingly vital to protecting our food supply from these emerging digital threats. We will give that. All right. So it looks like the majority of you do have protections in place. That's great. It's an awesome place to start. I'm really glad to see that. So, all right, let's go ahead and dive in here. So we talked that cybersecurity is vital, that we've got to have that on our radar. Cybersecurity attacks against agriculture rose 101% globally just in 2025, and agriculture is the fastest growing target among all industries. Here in the United States, the increase was 38% year over year, and small and mid-sized farms are often the most targeted. We need to get into the mindset that we're treating cybersecurity as essential infrastructure, just like irrigation or fuel. Digital protection is now critical to your operations. Move on to the next slide. We're going to see some statistics about the risk of cyber attacks. Beyond just general cybercrime, agriculture experienced 212 ransomware incidents in 2024. And in the first quarter of 2025, they saw 84 attacks. So 212 total in 2024. In the first quarter of 2025, there were 84, which was double that from the previous year. What we have learned is that the average recovery cost per incident can exceed $1.7 million, but that doesn't include the reputational damage that you could suffer or your downtime for your operation. So this is something that is exceedingly important, and it's becoming something we're going to have to deal with every single day. There is nearly 100% chance that you're going to see some sort of attack posed against you or your business through email, phone, or text messaging. So now is the time to invest in proactive defenses and employee training to reduce risk and cost. We go on to the next slide. We're going to start talking about business email compromise. So what is business email compromise? Well, the FBI tells us that it's a sophisticated scam targeting funds transfers. So these fraudsters exploit trust, urgency, and isolation to manipulate victims. As I said, it's one of the fastest growing financial crimes. And the scary thing about business email compromise is that it is extremely hard to detect. Sometimes these fraudsters only need 1 or 2 phishing or spoofed emails to get into your system, and then they sit in your system behind the scenes, learning who you converse with, who you talk to, the tone of your communications, the types of information that you request via email, and then they rely upon human error. So a lot of these attacks are going to come from an email address that could potentially look like a CEO or an authority figure. They are most likely going to try to convince you that it's urgent. So they're going to use language like ASAP or past due invoices to pressure you into acting quickly. And usually they're going to use trusted vendors, partners, or suppliers. So they're going to exploit that existing relationship so it doesn't look like either you're sending something to someone unknown or receiving something from someone unknown. You're going to feel like it's part of your day-to-day business. And most of the time, they're going to emphasize secrecy. So they're going to tell you, don't tell anybody about this, don't consult anyone, you have to act now. So always be cautious of emails that are requesting wire transfers or sensitive information. And it's always a best practice to verify requests for sensitive information or funds transfers using another channel. So we look at how business email compromise starts. It usually starts with spoofing, but what is spoofing, right? So spoofing is when a fraudster is able to create an email address that at a glance looks identical to an email address that you're used to seeing. Most times we're moving really quickly. We're just skimming over emails, especially if they look or feel like a typical day-to-day request. So that's why it is so important to slow down and verify that who you think you are communicating with is actually who you are communicating with. So if you look at the second bullet or the second point on the slide here, it breaks down the components of an email address. So you have your farm lending, which is the account, and agloan.com is the domain. In a spoofing attack, the fraudster is going to manipulate that domain to make it appear legitimate. But if you look at it very closely or you hover your mouse over it, you'll see a noticeable difference. Some samples of that shows that agloan.com, so AGLOAN, if they replace that with AG10AN, it still looks a lot like agloan.com. And if you're in a hurry or on a mobile device where the screen is smaller, you may not notice that small change. So it's always better to lessen the chances of being fooled by slowing down, again, examining the address. Some other tactics that people use are phishing, smishing, and vishing. Phishing, I'm sure you've heard of. Those are email messages that have a link or an attachment. Smishing is text, and a vishing is a phone call. So if we move on, we can figure out how to spot these types of attacks. Business email compromise is scary because it doesn't rely on you to click on something. It doesn't require you to download an attachment. It succeeds by manipulating human behavior and weaponizing trust. Because these communications that they send to you don't contain links or attachments, they can easily slip through normal online security tools that scan for threats. So email filters and things like that, because they don't overtly look dangerous. They go in there, they register domains that look identical to legitimate ones like we talked about. They'll make the email look like it's coming from someone else, like a CEO or someone in authority. One thing you can do is check the hour that the email is sent. Maybe it's sent in the middle of the night when you're asleep, but the fraudster's awake, which would be strange. Or the tone or communication style. Does this really match the person that you normally email back and forth? And just look for anything that doesn't align with that person's typical email behavior. And then again, if you get high pressure demands for confidential data or high pressure demands to transfer funds, they're trying to use urgency to override your critical thinking. They want you to act now and think later. So fraudsters are relying on that urgency. Always take time to verify before acting on any type of request. A legitimate request is not going to discourage you from asking a coworker for advice. It's not going to ask you to be secret about it. They're not going to tell you that it's urgent and you have to do this within a certain time frame. So always just take your time and run it by someone else if you're not sure. So now we're going to transition into our next topic of equipment fraud, and we're going to do another poll. So the poll that's popped up now is, I have purchased equipment from Facebook Marketplace for my operation, and it's just simple yes or no. So if you'd please supply your answer to that, we can see where our listeners are right now, how many people are purchasing equipment from Facebook Marketplace or another selling website like that. And then we're going to talk about some tips and tricks, some ideas, things to think about as you're making purchases on websites like that, where maybe you don't get to see the equipment in person, and just what we can do to protect ourselves from scams that involve equipment and deals that are just too good to be true. So we'll give that just a little bit longer and then see where we're at. Okay, that's great. So only 19% have, 81% have not. I like to see that. That's great. So what we are going to talk about today is we have a case study about some equipment fraud that did happen on Facebook Marketplace. So we have a 2018 John Deere tractor. It was listed for $149,000. Personally, I don't know how much that tractor should have been worth. So I did some research on it and found that it looked to be about $100,000 below what it would normally sell for. So the borrower found this tractor. It's less than other listings. This is a really great deal, he thinks. So he submits the request to send the funds to the seller. The wire is sent. The borrower then starts to have second thoughts and contacts the association wanting the wire to be recalled. At that point, over 24 hours had passed, and we know that when a wire is sent out, you typically have to pull it back very quickly in order to get that. So this wire just happened to be returned because it was declined at the receiving bank. So they lucked out there. They did not lose the money. They did not get the equipment. But let's look at the red flags that surround a scam like this. So the first red flag is that the price was significantly lower than other listings for the same equipment. So if it's too good to be true, it's probably not true. So we've got to always verify listings, serial numbers. And then the next red flag that we saw is that the phone number being used for communication did not match the business listing. And this is what ultimately convinced the borrower that they needed to call and try to recall the wire. They started to think about the transaction, had that gut feeling that something wasn't right, then realized the phone numbers didn't match up. And the next red flag of this one was that the recipient of the wire was not the same name as the business they were purporting to be. And then finally, the last red flag was that the business website and the Facebook profiles were both created in 2025. So in this case, these fraudsters located an equipment dealer that had gone out of business, and they used their name, the closed business's name, closed business address, to create a web page. They also created a Facebook profile and a Google listing, and went as far as to create and post fake reviews of this equipment dealer on both the website and Google. They created an LLC, an estate completely separate from where this equipment was supposed to be and where the business was supposed to be. And the LLC and the owner of the LLC were in no way near the tractor, near the equipment business, and the names did not match. So then the borrower began to question the transaction. Unfortunately, like I said, the wire had already been sent. But in this case, they were very fortunate because a data entry error had been made when trying to send that wire out, and the receiving bank declined it. If that error had not been made, the borrower most likely would have suffered a loss on this one. But the tip here and the takeaway is, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. So always verify your seller legitimacy. And some other tips that we can do to protect ourselves against equipment scams are as simple as asking questions. Have you worked with this seller before? Have you met with them in person? Have you seen the equipment in person? Are you being pressured to act quickly? And then investigate a little bit. Do an internet search. Use your favorite search engine. Look up that name of the seller. Type in the name and then scams associated with. And a lot of times you'll get some information to start popping up. You can go to the Better Business Bureau website and verify that that business is in good standing. You can search their address online and actually get it to take you to a picture, a road view of where that tractor should live. So if that equipment dealer, the address you have, takes you to a condo in downtown Miami, then we probably know that there's an issue with that. Another thing you can do is always insist on a video call if you're unable to go in person. And then consult with others in your community, others that are in agriculture. Have they dealt with this seller before? Have they purchased something? You can read reviews and online comments, but just be careful. Make sure you're really paying attention to the tone and when the reviews were posted. A lot of times you can see that there's misspellings and bad grammar, and it looks like they came from the same person or from a bot. So just be kind of cognizant of that when you're looking at reviews and comments. And then what you can always do is take the serial number that they provide and look it up on a trusted site to make sure it's not being sold somewhere else, so that they haven't like stolen somebody's listing off of one website and put it onto theirs. So just always do your research, do a little digging. And to mitigate the risk for equipment fraud, for business email compromise, and any cyber security items that we have, we can use technological safeguards. So you can use multi-factor authentication. So that would be where you have to get a code, whether it's through a text message or through an authenticator app, to log into something. So into your online banking. So you have that extra layer of protection. Another one that I know is very hard to do is to always use unique passwords and passphrases. Make sure that you are using a unique password for every online service that you have a password for, and then try to change those periodically. Some websites will make you change them after a certain period of time. Even if they don't, it's a best practice to go ahead and just make that change. When you are receiving emails, you've got to be vigilant. You need to recognize the signs of phishing and avoid sharing personal information over email. So like I said, you can hover your mouse over the email address, or you can hover your mouse over a link that comes in an email, and it will pop up and tell you exactly where that link's going to take you. And if it doesn't match, then we know that that's probably a phishing email or some sort of an attack. You should be aware of misspellings, like I said, time of day, tone of communication, and just always refrain from supplying login credentials or personal identifiable information of any sort in email. And be aware that these emails are going to look legitimate. But it's always just best practice. Don't send that stuff through email. Always verify the email address carefully. Monitor your financial accounts for suspicious activity. Log in to make sure your deposits are coming in as they should be, that the debits are correct, that there's nothing suspicious going on. Ensure that the settings in your computers at home and the settings of your employees' computers allow full email extensions to be viewed so that they can do that verification of email addresses and links. And then always confirm requests via phone using a trusted contact number, not one that's included in the email. And the best advice we can give here is to just confirm any type of wire request or a sensitive transaction by phone using a known contact number. Don't rely solely on email for those types of transactions. And then finally, what do you do if you think you've been a victim of fraud? So what we can do here for you at American Ag Credit is if you reach out to a relationship manager, a deal team member, or one of our customer support reps, you can report that fraud. You can contact our customer service either by email at customerservice@agloan.com or by phone at 1-800-800-4865 to report fraud. And then taking it just a little step further, you can also report cyber or financial crimes to your local law enforcement. So file a police report or report it to the sheriff's office. And then even to the FBI. The FBI has an online portal called the Internet Crime Complaint Center. It's ic3.com. You can go to their website. It's a publicly available portal where you can enter the information to deal with any type of cyber attack that has happened to you so that they can investigate that. And you will get a document with what you reported. The interesting thing about the IC3 Center is that it may seem like a long shot, but that is usually when you put your information in there, the more people that put it in there, the more attention it gets. A lot of times they are already working on crimes or cyber attacks, and the one you enter may fit that pattern, and they could reach out to you. So do be aware that you could receive a call from the FBI wanting more information in that case. So just like to point out, document everything. Everything you can write down, all your police reports, anything you report online, and timely reporting can help recover funds and prevent further damage. Also, just like to put a plug that we're currently refreshing the fraud and security section of agloan.com. So we were going to include some links to some publicly available reporting portals and some publicly available fraud information, things that you can do to protect yourself. So lots of tips, lots of valuable information is coming soon. And I'd just like to thank you for your time. And I think if we've got some questions, Jacob, we are ready to take them.
Awesome. Thanks, Heather. This was informative to me personally as a Facebook Marketplace guy. I know that if it seems like it's too good to be true, it is too good to be true, but those are great additional things to look out for. As Heather said, we will move into the Q&A section of our presentation today. I see a couple coming in, and I'll start with one. Heather, you had touched on changing our passwords and not reusing them. You know, that's important. I'm guilty. I said that out loud, and I know that a lot are the same. So I probably should get on that this afternoon. But how about usernames? You know, because we need a username and a password. Do they both need to be different in all cases?
They do. Unfortunately, they do. I know that even adds another layer of difficulty to logging in, but some of the best advice now coming out of the FBI's cybercrime division is that your username should have no identifiers in it at all. So it shouldn't have your first name, your last name, date of birth, a year of birth, anything that somebody could use to identify you. So the example that I believe they put on their website was like red kite 37. Like that should be something completely off the wall, does not tie to you at all in any way. And then of course the different username for each site and a different password for each site. I would definitely recommend a password keeper, some sort of a tool that you could use online that will take care of all of those things for you. Just keep them there so you can just plug them in when you need them. So,
Sounds like I have a busy afternoon ahead of me cleaning up
yeah.
for cybersecurity and passwords.
No.
Another question that we had come in was, does purchasing equipment from a website that we know like Big Iron or Purple Wave carry the same risks as Facebook Marketplace? And even if those are less risky, what are some things that we should probably be aware of? I'll add that to the
Yeah,
question.
absolutely. So those are definitely less risky because you're dealing with an actual dealer as long as you're going to the correct website. So as long as it's not an email that you got and they have the link and it looks like it's Big Iron and you click on it, but it really doesn't take you there. So that's another thing where you need to be really careful when you're clicking on links or looking at things in emails to make sure you are going to that actual website. Those are safer, they're vetted, they're verified sellers. But what you can still do is the same things. If you can't see the product or the equipment in person, reach out to the auction site and ask them, hey, can you just do a video call with me and let's walk around it? Can you show me the serial number? Can you show me the hours that are on the equipment? Things like that. So it is safer for sure. I would definitely lead you towards using an online auction site like Big Iron or Purple Wave over Facebook Marketplace. But I do think you need to take the same steps, ask the same questions just to make sure that when you're spending a significant amount of money for something that's going to impact your operations, that you're getting what you're being sold.
That makes sense. They can be significant investments, so you want to be smart about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another question we had come in is around passwords again, so a hot topic of the afternoon. And I know you had touched on the concept of a password keeper, so kind of a two-part. One is autofill, like on my Chrome browser, it always offers to store the password. Is that okay? And then if or if not, what are some recommended places or maybe software solutions to actually store passwords? And we don't we're not referring,
Yep.
we're not endorsing necessarily.
I can't say which one's better or which one's worse. Just do some research out there. I think if you just type in like into your favorite search engine, password keeper, there's going to be some good options that come up, and you can vet those options for yourself to see which one fits your needs the best. I would not recommend using the autofill on your web browser. That does not have the same level of security and encryption as a password keeper would have. And the nice thing about those systems or softwares is that you only have to remember one password. So you put your username and your one password into there, and you have access to everything else you need that's encrypted at any time. But there's lots of options out there. I think that you would easily be able to find one that will suit your business.
That is helpful and impartial. I appreciate that.
Yes.
So as a reminder, we still have time for some questions, so go ahead and submit that in the Q&A feature. Another one, Heather, you had mentioned that when going through the equipment fraud piece that you saw when the website was created, so what year? I think that's a helpful tool, as you stack the layers of suspicion. How do you actually find that information out?
Yeah, definitely. So what you can do, again, is just go to your favorite search engine and type in, I mean, honestly, all you have to type in is when was, put the website in, created. And with the different AI tools that are out there now attached to the search engines, it's going to tell you this site was created on this date. And it sometimes will even tell you like where it was created or where it was registered. In that same vein, what you could also do is if you are buying a piece of equipment and they give you a business name, you can look that business up to find out where that business is registered, what state. If you have that information, then you can go to the Secretary of State's website for the particular state, and you can look up to find out when was the business created, who are the signers on the business, are they in good standing, things like that. So, I mean, just some simple searches can can save you a lot of headache from sending someone money that shouldn't get it. So just do your due diligence. It's actually, I mean, it's kind of fun. I mean, I know I'm a fraud investigator, so I think that's really fun, but it's fun to uncover it, to be curious and solve your problem. So yeah. And it doesn't have to be fancy. You can just type the words in. When was this created? Or where is this business registered? It's not anything difficult.
It is kind of fun to put on your sleuth hat and see, I'm always a little skeptical. So if I'm gonna be spending a chunk of change on something, I want to make sure, that's a real person. So using the tools that we have at our resources is a smart approach.
Yep.
I'm not seeing any other questions come in. I'll try and buy some time as we wrap up if anybody wants to get any last minute questions in. But we thank you for joining us today. I found this information to be timely and helpful. And as a reminder, the presentation, the webinar recording will be shared with both everyone who joined us today live and with all who registered. And if you have any additional questions for Heather, we'll go ahead and drop her contact information in the chat. And with that, I don't see any additional questions. So thank you all. Thank you, Heather. This was awesome. And I appreciate your time and everyone joining us. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you.